For the second video that you are going to make, I want you to start from scratch, some completely new place. But I am starting with the old video that I had before, just to keep things simple. The first extension that you can do, in addition to creating a new video, is to add some music to your video. And this is a relatively easy thing to do with the Creative Cloud. You already have a program that you can download from the cloud called Adobe Audition. And then what you need to do is open up some sound clip that you think is pertinent to the video that you're making. So I have actually selected here a Quebecois band that I like a lot called Mes Aïeux, and I have one of their tracks. So I'm actually going to be using copyrighted material here. I'm probably not going to make this into a big public video of any sort, but here you can hear it. And what I want to do now is I want to capture enough time so that I am able to cover the entire video that that I've created. So you'll recall that I think mine was 25 seconds. So what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to click. Let's see. I think I go backwards here on it. Yep, I go backwards on it and I click. It looks like about a 30-second slice. And I can actually go up here and I can say edit, copy to new. And then that gives me what appears to be about a 30-second clip. Now I'm going to want to get rid of some of this here because it's too much. And so I only need 25 seconds. So I'm just going to get in here and maybe, I guess, cut it right down to 25 seconds. Again, you might want to mess around with this a little bit. And I can just hit delete to get it to 25 seconds. Now we have a little video clip, or audio clip rather. And what we want to do is get it to fade in and out. And that's super easy to do in Audition. See this little icon right up here? Just grab that icon and you can sort of stretch it down like that to fade it. And again, you can mess around with this a little bit. I'm just doing the basic. And now if we go back to the beginning of it, you'll hear what it sounds like. Here we go. Comes up to full volume. And then over here, okay, it fades out, and that's what we want. It's 25 seconds. Now I can just go ahead and save this file. And of course, I'm going to want to save it in my folder. So I'm going to go back to the folder. And this is an important thing to do, to try to keep your stuff in the same folder for this, because you've probably already figured out that Premiere Pro creates a whole bunch of extra folders and things that you need for your project. So I'm going to go to that Google Earth Studio. I'm going to click on Chateau. I'm going to give this the title of just clip or audio clip, something like that. Put it under Chateau. And there it is. I'm just going to save it there. So hopefully I've done this correctly. Let me cancel that and see if I have. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to do the file import again. And find my folder. And is it there? No, I must have put it some other place, or maybe I didn't finalize it. Better try that again. Sorry about that. So File and Save As, and browse to that again. Oops, I went to Mapping, of course. Or Studio, Chateau. I'm going to call it Audio Clip for the second time. Now you're getting good and practiced at this. And say Save. And then I guess what I didn't do was say OK here. I mean, now, is it there? We're about to find out. So we're going to do the File and Import again. And got to keep going back. I'm sorry to put you through this. There it is. The audio clip is there. It's imported it. And now I can just drag it on here. Oops. And I want to drag it over that whole thing right there. And I'm going to play it. And let's see how it goes. Okay, so we're good to go. And now, of course, you probably want to make sure that the clip is there for the whole thing, which it is, it fits perfectly. And then you want to export it just like you did before. And so that's one extension that you can do, but I'm going to go over a couple of other extensions as well. In extension 2, we're going to be talking about how to use KML files within Google Earth Studio. And some of you guys are pretty familiar with KML files, especially if you've taken my classes before. You probably know how to build them. I'm actually going to build one in the online version of Google Earth that I will then go ahead and deploy with a couple others that I made just previous to this. So I'm going to enter into Google Earth Online and sign into my account and click on the little project tab over here. This can be done in Google Earth Pro as well, just as easily. I like the icons in the new Google Earth a little bit better. Then I'm going to hit New Project and go to Create KML. And I'm going to give this a name, and I will just call it Fort. Fort will work for this. And then I'm going to create a new feature and add a place mark. And you can do lines and polygons. I am just choosing instead to do points or place marks here. So I'm going to select the location right there. I'm going to call it La Citadelle. And then I'm going to scroll down just a little bit more over here, and I'm going to change a couple things. You know, if you want to, you can do that. I'm going to change from the default size to a large one, and I'm going to change the color. That's actually the color of the text. I think I want to keep that white, but I'm going to change the color of the place mark and make it purple or something like that. So let me go back and get that text undone, or I can keep the text purple. I guess it doesn't matter. And then when I'm done with this, what I'm going to do is I'm going to move back, and here's that feature, and I'm going to export it as a KML file. And I'm going to place that KML file into my file folder. And then I'm going to bring up Google Earth Studio. Okay, sorry for that awkward little break there, but now I have Google Earth Studio up, and what I'm going to do this time is I'm going to go to Overlay, and I'm going to import a KML from my computer, and I'm going to get out of the joke images that I made for all my family, and I'm going to go to Google Earth Studio and back up to Chateau, and you'll see I have 3 KMLs now. And they're using a slightly different marker than what you usually see for Google Earth. But I'm going to open each of these, and I think that I can import them all at the same time, as I recall. And then here they show up, and they're all uploaded, and they have shown up in the overlay window or the panel right here, and you can see them showing up over here. And now they appear over here in the movie as well. Do you see? I've got one for Notre Dame, one for the park, and one for the Citadel, which is just off the camera view port here. But what I'm going to do, and this is really important, is I'm going to go to each of them, and I'm going to keyframe their opacity. And I'm going to go down and do the same thing for that one, and the same thing for this one. And it's important that you have individual KML files. If you try to pack them all into one, it's going to end up being really difficult for you to work with. And then I'm going to scroll down here, and if this is done properly, you'll actually see down at the very bottom of this is the opacity overlays. And there's one for each of them. So now what I want to do is I want to actually play around with this opacity just a little bit here. And this one is for the Parc de Governor right here. And I'm going to actually, right now it just shows up everywhere we put it. But I'm going to have it show up when we sort of move over here. And I'm going to move to the time that I want it, and I'm going to click that little keyframe there. And then I'm going to keep scrolling, and I'm going to have it turn off when I get over, I guess, about here. And do that. And then in the middle of that, I'm going to put another keyframe right here. And I'm going to keep that one at 100%, but this one I'm going to click on and I'm going to turn it into 0. And over here, I'm going to click on this one, double click on it, and I'm going to turn that to 0 as well. And so now what should happen is, as I scroll through this, you'll see that it appears. Actually, I ended up doing it for the Citadel. Sorry, because my space is really constrained here, and it was the fort one that I did. So I'm actually going to change that a little bit. Where do I want it to show up? I probably want it to show up right over here, and I'm just going to stretch that over here. And you can see it starting to show up over here. And then as I get out of the range here, I'm going to turn it off over there. So I'm just going to have it show up for a little tiny bit, like that. And then you'll see it goes away. It appears and then goes away. Okay, and then let me go down and do that for the park. And again, I'm not spending a lot of time working on this, but you can spend a lot of time fussing with it and getting everything just right. And that's what you should do, of course, in the project. And over here, I'll have it reach 100% right here. Double click on this, turn that to 0. Double click on this, turn that to 0, and save it. And now the park is going to open and shut. And as we scroll around over here, I want Notre Dame to open and shut as well. Here, I think I'm completely off of the screen, but I'm going to scroll down just a little bit. And here's that overlay capacity for Notre Dame. I'm going to have it appear right over here, I guess. And then I'm going to have it disappear over here someplace. And again, it's not that important, for these purposes. One thing to note as you're doing this is if your KML is going to be blocked by some image, or if you're zooming in too close, it might completely disappear anyhow because of some of the settings that Google Earth Studio has. So, you might have to mess around with things a little bit in order to get everything to be just right. And you might have to make a couple of these files to make sure that you're fine. And that one's still at 100. Okay, that's great. So now let me go back to the very beginning of the video, and I'll start, and we should see these things appear and disappear as we go through the viewport here. So here comes, I believe, the park and the Citadel show up at the same time. The Citadel just went away, and now Notre Dame is showing up, and the park's going away, and you get the idea. I'm going to pause the render here, not the render, but the keyframe here. And then you go ahead and you render this thing just as you normally would, with the keyframes embedded in it, and it should show up the way that it's supposed to. And you go ahead and produce the video in the same way. But I'm just going to stick with Google Earth for both this extension and the next one as well. Okay, for the last extension, and I'm sure you can find other things to do as well, I'm going to show you how to do sort of a free-form construction in Google Earth Studio, not using one of these quick starts. So I've gone to a blank project and just stuck with blank rather than doing a quick start. And I'm actually going to go to the same area for this one. So I'm going to call this project Quebec 3, since I've done some other ones. You'll see it has a duration of 45 seconds. I'm going to keep that a little bit smaller for the time being, just so I don't have to mess around with quite as much space as I otherwise would. I'll keep everything else the same, and then go to start. And you can just go ahead and start, search for a place, and I'll go back to the Chateau Frontenac, but that's actually not the area that I'm planning to do here. I'm going to zoom out a little bit, and then I'm going to rotate using my cursor. And what I want to do here is I just want to make a flight line that's going to go down and sort of show the whole older city here. And so in order to do this, what you're going to do is you're going to keyframe shots. And I really strongly recommend you don't try a lot of complicated things. If you try to do a whole lot of complicated in and out and back and forth and up and down, you're going to end up with a mess, and it's going to be hard, especially as you're just starting this out. So wherever your keyframe is, when you press that Add Attributes right there and keyframe all attributes, that's what you're going to capture. So this is where I'm going to start, and I'm just going to click that. And then I'm going to move forward a few seconds, 4 seconds, and I'm going to bring it in a little bit, and I'm going to keyframe that shot. And then I'm going to move it a little bit further, and zoom in just a little bit more, and I'm going to keyframe that. And then I'm going to continue this process, but this time I'm going to add a little bit of a turn to it. Maybe move that like that. Keep going. I'm going to spin us around a little bit more and zoom out just a bit and keyframe that. And then I'm going to go out here to 20 seconds and zoom it out just a bit more so we can see everything. And again, and keyframe it. You might want to do that a little bit. And I recommend at the end of your video that you put a couple seconds, I'm putting a big chunk of time here, 5 seconds actually, where you just stay in one place. And I'm going to keyframe that. Okay, now if I zip through this thing, I can watch my whole video that I've made. And you'll see that it looks good. But one thing you might notice here is that the keyframe ends up going to sort of the shortest possible distance and point. And sometimes things get left out that you might want to hear. You have motions that you don't want to have. One way that you can address this issue is you can put in a focal point or a target. So I'm actually going to pause this thing right here. And I'm going to right click on the Citadel of Quebec. And I'm going to set a camera target there. And you'll see that that camera target now has been set right here. I'm going to add that as an attribute. And then I'm going to continue to move with that attribute out to here as well. And then I'm not going to worry about it. I'm just going to let it sort of zoom out on its own. So now if I play this whole thing, you'll see that I'm zoomed in on that one location because it's anticipating where the target is going to be. And it's going to stick with that in the keyframe until it starts to zoom out more. So let's say I want to sort of highlight the position of that fort if I'm talking about the strategic geography of North America. Something like that. Another thing that you can do is you can go up to animation up here. And let me pause this whole thing. And you can change the easing in and out. And I'm going to change the easing just on auto ease. And it's applied that auto ease to all these other keyframes here. And that's just going to make things look a little bit smoother. Because when you create the keyframes, it often creates some choppiness that you have actually put in as you've moved things around. So this is looking a little bit better. Now I can go in and I can modify any of these keyframe attributes that I want to here. So if I want things to go up a little bit higher, or if I want the target to be changed, or if I want there to be multiple targets, or if I want the camera to rotate in a different way or tilt in a different way, I can modify all of this. I will tell you, though, that I try not to modify them very much at all. Because when I do, I usually end up creating all sorts of problems. All hell breaks loose. Because I'm not very good at using the 3D camera. I think it's not super intuitive to use that 3D camera. And as a result of that, you can really make a lot of mistakes if you're not very good at it, and I am not. It's worth noting, though, that you can look at things in other directions here, and it will actually put the camera into position to help you understand what you're looking at. And people who really know how to do this are able to make modifications, and you can make the modifications here or down here that will help you to understand that. But I usually stick with the camera one. It's simple, it's easy. And I encourage you to try this. Another thing you can do is you can start with quick start and then modify the quick start a little bit. But again, I often run into problems when I do that, so it can be a little bit hard and tricky. But I look forward to seeing whatever you do experiment with, whether it's this extension or another one.